Hello, Dreamcatchers, and welcome to another exciting day in the Writer's Haven. I am your host, V. Helena, and today in studio with me is novelist Teresa B. Howell. Teresa is the author of 5 books, all penned under her publishing house, Walking in Victory International. I'm thrilled to have her here to talk about her call to write fiction, nonfiction, and she even managed to write and produce a play featuring her 3-book series, That Church Life. Got it right here. So join me in welcoming author and playwright Teresa B. Howell. Welcome to the Haven, Teresa.
Thank you for having me. So glad to be here.
I know, this has taken forever to make happen, but I'm glad you're here. And since we had actually made the connection and made the arrangement for you to be here, you popped out another book.
Yeah, I popped out a couple of books, gave birth to a few.
Yeah. So you know what, before we get started, because as my team was doing research about your illustrious career that started in 2016, which is phenomenal in itself, 5 books, and you've only been on the scene since 2016. But I have found different places classified you in different ways. You know, I've seen Christian fiction, I've seen suspense thriller. Tell me, how do you identify yourself, and what genre do you feel you fall into?
In the beginning, I thought I was a suspense thriller type writer, so I kind of put myself in that category. But it was the Christian readers that took the book and placed it in Christian fiction. So I noticed I was getting a lot of reviews from Christian fiction readers. And so I said, okay, well, maybe this is more of my niche. And so starting off, you really don't know who your audience is or who you're supposed to be writing for. And so it took me maybe about a couple of months to figure out, okay, Christian fiction is where I need to be. That I grew up in the church, so it's not like I don't know how it goes. I grew up in a Pentecostal.
Were you a PK?
I was not a PK.
Okay.
But I had a babysitter who took me into her family and kind of molded me into the church family. My parents were not big churchgoers, but because I stayed up under her so much, she took me to church with her, and she was a pastor. So you might as well say I was a PK in a sense. But I was in church on Sundays, Wednesdays, Fridays, Saturdays for rehearsal. So I spent a lot of time in the church growing up. So
was it some of the drama that you saw happening in the church that compelled you to write?
Oh, yes. So most of my stories have a tinge of realism to it, based upon my experiences. Like if it was a woman, I would have changed the character to probably a man and kind of move it around a little bit so they won't know that I'm writing about them or get sued for writing about them. But I have had a lot of experiences growing up in the church. I've seen a lot of drama, I've seen a lot of heartache, but I've seen a lot of joy as well. So it wasn't all bad experiences, but it was some thrillers that I definitely wanted to write about.
Okay. Now, you've written this trilogy of books called, I'm going to show the book again, That Church Life. And you've gotten some outstanding reviews, awards, recognition. You've been all over social media and just media in general. I'm very, very impressed, to tell you quite honestly.
Well,
and we're going to talk a bit about that strategy, that marketing strategy that you used. But who is your target audience?
Now, because of some of the things that I write, I focus on mental illness and overcoming things like that, or domestic violence. I was a psychology major, and I'm also an EC teacher in real life. So I work with the population all the time. And some of the things that I see with my students, I try to also put those things in my books so that people can relate, because these are things that are happening in the church as well. We just don't talk about them.
Do you use it as a means of therapy?
Yes.
To some degree?
It's very therapeutic to write about these things, about the things that I see, and show how the character is overcoming these different scenarios. So that's the main goal, to show how they have faith to keep moving and to overcome their disability or their challenge or whatever they're going through.
So that's the core message in your writing, what you're looking to convey to the reader.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So as I said, you've authored 5 books since 2018, and you've also recently ventured into playwriting. What compelled you to just begin the writer's journey? Just from the writing, and then let's talk about your segue into playwriting.
Yeah, so I, junior college, when I was about 19 years old, there was a professor that had us write little short stories for the class. It was an assignment. And she told me then at 19 that I should be a writer. And, you know, I didn't follow that path because I thought I was going to be a dancer and a singer with Janet Jackson.
Okay.
Yeah. So I...
Janet, if you're listening.
I'm too old now, Janet. I'm too old. But back then, I really wanted to pursue. I had all these dreams of going to California and being this big star. Never had any dreams about writing. And so it was about 2015, my grandmother had passed. And I was grieving really hard of her death because we were really close. And my mother-in-law at the time came to me and said, God told me that you're supposed to be writing, and writing is therapeutic for you. And so I'm like, what am I supposed to be writing? Like, write what? And so I started off with nonfiction, and it didn't feel right. And then I wanted to tell a story. And so that's how the journey began. It took me about a year to write my first book.
Okay.
Once I wrote it, I had a couple of editors, you know, look it over and read it, and they were like, you are a natural storyteller, so you might want to pursue this. So the book came out May 24th. It was before Greenleaf. Oprah needs to know this. It was before Greenleaf. So when it came out, it just kind of, it was like a wave. And then by that September, I, you know, had TV shows lined up to, you know, talk about it when I go into those particular cities with the book. A publicist had came on board. And so it was like, I just rushed right into it without knowing how big this book would become. Had no idea it was going to go past my mother and my father.
Wow, that's amazing. That's awesome. So what is your writing process? And let's just focus on the novel writing first, and then we'll get into the playwright. But what is your process, and what are some of the challenges that you faced in writing your first novel?
So once I learned what kind of writer that, because I didn't know at first, I was just writing to write. I found out that I am a pantser. I write by the seat of my pants. I don't do outlining. It's very foreign language to me to do outlining. I've tried it. I've had great writers tell me the outlining process is so much better and it's so faster to write a book. I just can't do it. I just can't do it, from cue cards to whatever. They have a program called Scribner that I was told that I should use. It just takes too much time to kind of dump the information in and shuffle it around when I could just write. So I am a pantser, and it's really like a spiritual journey for me more so, because I write, I come back to it a couple of days, I rewrite, come back to it a couple of days. So it's like I'm always starting at the first chapter.
Are you editing while you're writing? Is that?
Yes, I am. Now I am. Now in the beginning I did not, because I didn't know that process, but I did take training with a particular author who showed me the way about how to edit your own material, and that was a good class for me. So
we can say her name.
Oh, I didn't know if I could say her name.
And you can.
So Victoria Christopher Murray is a well-known author that she gives online classes, and I took a class 4 weeks with her. And at first I was like, maybe this isn't for me. I don't understand what she's talking about. Like, why is she saying this? But once I got into it and I started writing and reading her notes and going back, it all made sense. So I still use those notes to this day because it really helps the process on how to really bring those characters to life and not have all your characters have the same voice.
Yeah.
Because that's a problem with most new authors. They don't know how to give their characters that dynamic voice to differentiate from the other characters. So that 4 weeks, it was a boot camp. but I needed it, and it was good for me. And so I was blessed to meet her. I've met some other authors, Jacqueline Thomas. She actually mentored me for a little while, so I was blessed to be in the presence of such great authors.
Yeah, yeah. Victoria's phenomenal. So is Jacqueline. Very, very good authors to look at and to glean from their writing process and their writer's journey. And speaking of that, are there any authors that inspire your work?
Kimberly Lawson Roby is my favorite, and I guess she became my, I didn't read all of her books. I just started like reading her books a couple of years ago.
Reverend Black?
Yes, because that Church Life has a character, Olivia, that is carried on throughout the series. So Reverend Black was a good example on how you can continue on a series like that. So I like her writing style. Her books are very encouraging. I also like Victoria's books. I've read a couple of her books. So those particular authors, they keep my attention. Yeah. And those are the ones that I aspire to be like one day. And as I grow, I hope that one day somebody can say, oh, you write just like so-and-so. I would one day want to be compared to them because they're great writers.
Okay, okay. So last fall, you produced a play that was based on the characters for that Church Life, Natalie, Michelle, and Missy. Why did you turn to writing plays, or what compelled you to write a play about that series?
So once I discovered that I was a storyteller, because you know I didn't know that at first, but once I discovered that, I had several conversations with different people who really wanted me to bring the story to screen first, but I didn't have the budget. And so I said, well, let me try play. Let me try to put it in a playwriting form. So I did get help. A girl named Renee out of Charlotte, she started the process for me, and she kind of showed me how to like formulate a script and things like that. And then once everything was done, I went back and kind of changed things how I knew, because I know my book best, on what I wanted the characters to do, how I wanted the characters to look on stage. So that took about 9 months to get the script.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, really the way that I wanted it to. And I'm blessed because I have a cousin who is the director at Winston-Salem State College. He's over that arts program. And so he does all their plays there. And ironically, I never met him before until I wanted to write a play. He's not much, I better not say that, he's not much older, but he's in another generation, kind of like my dad's generation of age. And so I didn't really know him, and he was always traveling on Broadway and doing different things. So finally we met, and he told me the process, and he kind of told me how a producer should be and how a director should be and the components you needed for a play. He helped me with the auditions. He helped me pick out like 6 of the actors. And so it just took off from there.
Wow, that's incredible to have an asset like that to work on you with your first playwright, your first play. And I did read some of the reviews for that play, and it sounds like you have the following because of the book, and the play is based on the characters in the book. So you have that built in, but the play itself just seems to be doing so incredibly well. And I think you said earlier, I don't know if you said it on air or back in the green room, that you've had it performed twice now? Okay, do you have any shows that are coming up that you're planning?
Yes, so we're bringing it back to Durham, North Carolina on June the 29th. Charlotte will be September 28th, and then Richmond, Virginia will be, I think it's October 12th. Okay. Yeah. We did have plans to bring it to Boston, where that's my hometown. But unfortunately, because I'm funding it out of my own pocket.
For now.
For now.
For now. I mean, your trajectory in this writing business and then moving on to playwright, I mean, I totally see you doing well with absolutely, absolutely, because you have that gift for writing that people enjoy, that they appreciate, and I think that it will serve you well, and I totally and completely see you going well beyond.
Well, I
where you
receive that
are.
totally, because it is very expensive to fund a play and to
But
pay.
just look at where you started and where you are now. I mean,
Well,
that's some
true.
great progress.
Yeah,
In a short period of time, Teresa.
yeah.
We're
Yeah.
only talking 3 years, so yeah, it's definitely going to happen for you. And it's happening for you.
Well, I'm definitely an overachiever. Like, if I'm going to do it, I want it to be perfect. So, like, book 1 is a great example. I think I've had book 1 edited maybe about 9 times.
Okay.
Because I was just not satisfied with the quality of the book when it first came out. I mean, I even changed the book cover. The first book cover was like some brown, you know, I didn't know anything about book covers back then.
And we both know how important that is.
Yeah, and so when it
Cover design.
yeah, when it would be when you put it on the shelf in Barnes and Noble, because it was so brown, you really couldn't see my name or the name of the book. And so people were missing it in the bookstores. So I said, okay, let me change make it colorful. And those are all pieces of marketing that you don't think about when you write a book.
Right, and I want to delve more into that when we talk about Teresa the publisher.
Okay.
But I want to ask you one other question about the playwriting versus, or in addition to playwriting, the novel writing. Same process in writing them, or no? Okay, great. Well, let's talk about your process for playwriting.
So with playwriting, because you have to think visually, you have to really see these characters on stage. The first reading that we did for the script just didn't feel right, because I was trying to visualize these characters doing these certain things. So I had to get the director's help to kind of, because I've never done this before. I don't know how they're supposed to look on stage. So there was a girl out of Fayetteville, Lyric Productions. She has a company out in Fayetteville. She helped me in the beginning stages of the play as well, to kind of like see that visual piece, because I didn't have an eye for it at the time. So now that we've done it 2 times, I mean, I'm still changing things in the script. Like, I'm still trying to make it more visually aware, and not so much of just the lines from my book. So it's practice, I guess, but I'm determined to make it perfect.
So you write it, and then you hear the actors perform it, and then you make edits where you deem appropriate. That's not unusual. That's not unusual for writing for plays as well as films. So that's good. That's good. Because you're a pantser, and so that novel writing and your way of attacking it is, you definitely have to be a natural, in my opinion, in order to do that. I could not be a pantser, for example. I'm very organized and methodical about my writing, but your books are just so well written that I never would have thought you were a pantser, because in my head I'm thinking, oh boy, pantser, that must be a difficult way to write, because for me, I need the organization.
Right.
So for me, without the organization, I know I wouldn't be able to do it. So that's why my mind is tuned in that way. But you do an excellent job of it.
Well, thank you.
Very evident. I mean, anybody can just go on Amazon, put your name in, read the reviews. I mean, and you have lots of reviews and lots of people that are following you and enjoy your writing. So that's all a good thing. Now, let's talk about you, the publisher, now.
Okay.
And when you were writing your first book, did you know that you wanted to self-publish it, or did that come later?
I did know that I wanted to self-publish. I had created a business name for Barnes and Noble. My name is Terry.
Okay.
I would call and say, hey, my maiden name is Ellis. Hey, I'm Terry Ellis, and I'm trying to get Teresa B. Howell's book in your store. Can she have a book signing?
Yeah.
So I was representing myself, and it worked.
Yeah.
I got myself into Barnes and Noble bookstores, and it started trickling, throughout from state to state. Once I got into maybe say 2, they can see where you're at when they're looking it up and see, who's kind of buying your book and things of that nature. So it became easy to get in the stores. So just for the public to know, it's not easy for self-published authors to get into Barnes & Noble. That's not inside the store. You can get online because you're going through Amazon or different publishing companies online, but to actually have your book in the store is like huge for a self-published author. So I kind of represented myself, kind of pushed myself, and I, again, trying to be a perfectionist, I had to make it right. And so I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. Even came down here to Howard University, did a book signing there, and somebody walked in and was like, "How did you get in here?" I just called. I just spoke to the manager, and he looked me up and saw where the book was on Amazon as far as the countdown and all that, and he let me in. So it's a great experience to advocate. No one can advocate like you can for yourself. I have an assistant, I have all these people helping me, but I'm probably my best advocate. So that's something I teach my students. So yeah, I just started getting on the phone, started calling people. I can't say it works for everybody. I don't know. It's a blessing. It is a divine intervention that these things have happened. But if I had to give advice to an author, I would say just continue, keep pushing. You get in one store, you get in 2 stores, and eventually it'll be a domino effect for you.
Right, right. I mean, and that's very inspiring for people to hear, I think. There are authors who are well established who are actually moving into self-publishing as well. You know, once their contract ends, they're moving into self-publishing because they've built a name for themselves. For them, it's easier, but then for those newer authors who have a book that they have a desire to put out there, hearing how you have been able to form your own imprint, and then managing your business while being an author is truly, truly inspiring. Do you have other authors under your publication?
I tried that in the beginning, but because of my time limitations, I really couldn't give them the attention that they needed, and I thought it was unfair to try to publish them. I didn't want their money. I wanted to make them great. So I had 2 authors in the beginning that I worked with, and then I said, you know what, let me teach you how to do this. Let me show you how this works instead of you being under me, because you can do this yourself. And so they are self-published authors now. And I gave a little class and gave them all my little notes of what I've done. Don't know if they used them, but hopefully they did. But yeah, I felt it was a disservice to have them come under me, because I'm just so busy with my own stuff in the play and all the other stuff that I do, that I wouldn't be able to give them the time that I wanted, that they should have. Not that I wanted to, but that they should have.
Yeah. So 5 books within the span of 3 years. I can't emphasize that enough. And I really want the dream catchers that are listening to hear that, because there are some people, myself included, who have been working on the same book 2, 3 years, and, you know, all kinds of excuses. Well, life happened, or, you know, I got this demanding job, or I have little kids, or, you know, whatever the excuse is. And all of us have something, but there are those of us like yourself who, in spite of all of those things, you found the time to write.
Yeah, it was a huge sacrifice. It's not like I had the time, but I made the time. I took a lot of time away from my family, which my family is very forgiving and loving. So they allowed me to go in my little secret closet and write. But you know, everybody doesn't have that type of family where they kind of leave you alone and let you do your thing, because everybody has a demand from mommy. But I was fortunate that having all boys, that they kind of, well, let her do her thing, because, you know, we're going to go out and play football. So it worked out for me. And I spent a lot of hours in my little office writing. So it went from 1 year for the first book, then the second book, it was like maybe 9 months, then the third book, it became 4 months, and then the nonfiction book came out, the little prayer book that took
The devotional.
The devotional.
What's the name of it?
Positive Vibes Only.
Okay.
Yes, and that took maybe about 3 months. And then the last book, Delayed But Not Denied, that took
And
about,
let me show that to our dream catchers. This is her latest book, came out February of 2019. Different characters
Different
than
characters.
your first three.
different characters, but same drama. So yeah, it took me about maybe 3 months to write that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You guys are listening, right? 3 months. Took her 3 months. And I love the catch line for it, that, you know, she married this guy, the man of her dreams, and then she finds out this secret by, it's a piece of paper in his Bible.
Yeah.
I love that. Because we do that, don't we? You know,
Yes.
I mean, you know how everybody has the big, thick Bible on their, I don't know, in their living room. You know, when you go in old folks' home, everybody got that picture, the picture of Jesus, white Jesus, and then they have this big old Bible. Not, I know it wasn't that big in your book, but people leave things. They'll put their, you know, birth certificates and all kinds of stuff in there. And then, you know, this person, this husband, I love that. I love that.
I came up with the idea because my mother had passed in 2016, and that's what I was finding a whole bunch of Bibles around with stuff in it.
Oh, okay.
And it was like, you know, she would write down personal information, phone numbers of friends she was trying to keep up with. She was military, so her military papers, it was like you found everything in her Bible. So I said, I wonder what this would look like for a preacher who was having an affair, and this woman leaves him all these letters, and he keeps it in his Bible. And the wife finds out.
Yeah.
She gets to read them.
I love that storyline. Very, very well done. Delayed but not denied. Love it, love it. Came out February 2019. So what's next?
I have a story that I'm writing called Pastor Delilah.
Okay, Delilah as in the Bible Delilah. Okay, same characteristics as that Delilah?
Kind of, sort of.
Okay.
Except she's not really as you know, Samson was her, kind of like her boo thing. No, he's not her. She's gonna hook him up with somebody that's not right for him.
Oh.
So I kind of switched it around.
You switched it around.
I guess I shouldn't really tell the story, but yeah.
All it's going to do is make people run out and grab it.
Look for it for Pastor Delilah.
Okay.
And that Church Life Part 4, Olivia's story.
Okay. Okay. Well, great. And thank you so much for joining us. Remember to connect with me socially on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram at Author V. Helena. And you can stream our show on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Sonos, SoundCloud, Alexa, and Spreaker by visiting our Writers Haven Show with V. Helena channels. Subscribe to them all and never miss a show. I look forward to connecting with you. And until next time, catch fire on purpose. The Writers Haven Show was created to showcase the passion, process, and projects of writers of literature, television, and film. Stream our shows on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, iTunes, Sonos, SoundCloud, Spotify, Alexa, and YouTube. We drop new episodes every week, so subscribe and never miss a show. Find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Tumblr at Author V. Helena, and visit our website at www.writershavenshow.com. See you in the Haven, and until next time, catch fire